You've talked a lot about getting to this point and getting past that Elite Eight game and then just go play and have fun. How confident are you that this team, this group, these guys will be able to do that when you get down there?
Well, I think when you play, coin flip games, you could play well and still not, win, obviously. And so certainly with the teams that are in this field, primarily Villanova, is our concern. But you can play well and still not win. I anticipate highly competitive, but fun atmospheres and contests. And even though you're playing for the highest of stakes our sports has to offer, you shouldn't be lost that it shouldn't be lost that it's also a reward for job well done throughout the season and obviously in the tournament. So I think our guys will be able to do that. I think you guys saw some things personality wise with them throughout the year and primarily here lately that would tell you that the guys are really enjoying themselves right now.
Personality, good segue. I wanted to ask you about Remy. There's been so much talk from your fan base about how this reminds them of Malik in 18. Yeah. Does it remind you of that?
I don't know that Malik in 2018 was the best guard in America over a 3-week period. I mean, he was the best guard in America over a 3-week period. I don't know that Remy can quite make that claim that he was that. I mean, Malik gets, all 13 in overtime against Duke that were real points. But what he has done for us from a personality and an energy standpoint, I think carries equal value. And he's also played very well on top of that. So I'm really excited for him. I could never have imagined that a guy that could labor as much as he has all year long could have the 3 weeks that he's having right now. And of course has a chance to extend that. So I'm really, really happy for him.
He obviously has, plenty of starts in his career and things like that. Have you enjoyed him taking to that 6-man role? Did you, with him being as hot as he has, did you consider starting him? Anything?
No. We've done pretty well this year, starting who he started. And so, even though his play definitely warrants starting, I still think it's best for our team to have the energy off the bench, and it's also best for the other guys and best for Juan to be a starter because Juan's been the point guard on a team that's won 32 games. So I just don't want to change that at all. But I don't look at it anything other than we have 7 starters right now. That's how I'm looking at this.
Jermaine Samuels has given a lot of teams troubles kind of as that small ball 5 for them. Is there any player team that reminds you of? What kind of challenges is that going to give you guys?
We watched I went back and I watched us play in, was it 2019-20, the year? And he was young and we were really young. And although his skill set's totally different now and everything, but it was interesting because he was David McCormack's guard. We played 2 bigs back then, Doak and David. And so he was his guard and Doak guarded Jeremiah, although we still switched quite a bit. So that's he definitely presents problems because he can, in that game he beat us off the catch. But what he can really do is, beat you off the bounce. He's a tremendous driver of the ball and a good shooter. And certainly it'll be a hard matchup regardless of who's guarding him. And they have more. You go back and watch tape. They obviously lost Justin, and that's certainly a blow to him and to their program, and so sad for him. But they got capable guys. I mean, they'll bring whoever Daniels in or whatever, and they're usually going to have 5 guards you got to defend all the time on the perimeter.
Mitch and Chris being on the 2018 team, does that help at all in a week like this?
I was asked that before, and I would say probably not. I think this is so different. Maybe Mitch and Chris can share some things that they remember about it. I'll be honest with you. After about the first 4 minutes of the our first game, I tried to forget everything. So because we got punched in the mouth down there by Nova without question. So, but I do think there's a couple of things that I know personally that we've made notes on and stuff that I'll try to handle differently down there than the way we handled it in San Antonio. They're my notes. They're not your notes. They're my notes. So.
All right, we'll entertain any questions from the Zoom at this time. Just chime on in.
Hey, Coach Self. I was curious, do you give any thought to what a second championship would mean for your legacy?
I've given thought about what a second championship would mean in our tenure here, but I haven't really thought much about it from a legacy standpoint. You know, I do think this. I started thinking about it today, and I don't want to put our program down, but you know, Villanova's won a couple here recently. Hey, Duke's won a couple in the last decade or 11 years or whatever it's been. Hey, Carolina's won a couple in amount of time. So I do think for our program is, you know, without questions, one of the top programs in the country. I mean, nobody can debate that at all. But for it to be thought of as the equal of anybody else's, you know, we got to cut down nets on Monday night. You know, do more of that because we can stack up against anybody in any particular area. But when you talk about total number of national championships, we're behind obviously some of the other blue bloods that we can compete with. So I don't know about my legacy, but for the program and the historic nature of it, I think that it certainly would add something very significant to it.
Bill, this is Dana O'Neill. I was wondering the way Villanova posts up their guards, how unique is that and how difficult is that to defend because of its uniqueness?
Yeah, it's you know, Jay's always done a great job with that, as everybody knows. And, you know, not very often can you go into a game thinking, you know, their best post player may be 6'2". And of course, with Nova over time, whether it be, you know, Colin Gillespie now or Jalen Brunson before, whoever. I mean, those guys have a unique way to get to a spot on the floor and then put you in jeopardy by fouling, by getting lifted, and by having perimeter players turn their head because they're the best passers out of the post too. So it is hard. And then, you know, there's other things that make it difficult, and we're still trying to figure out exactly the best way we want to try to guard their certain situations, just like I'm sure they're looking at us in certain situations. But it is a unique way to play, considering that you have, you know, maybe some of your smallest players be your best post people, and then some of their best players, some of their biggest players can play so well away from the basket.
Bill, it's Adam Zagori. I just had a quick question for you about the Villanova culture, Bill. You know, Jay's put 7 or 8 guys in the NBA. None of them are one and dones. You know, they've won 2 national championships here, mostly with older players, no one and dones. Whereas, you know, obviously the Dukes and Kentuckys and you guys have had their share of one and dones. What does it say about kind of the culture that Jay's built there, and is he doing things a little differently?
Yeah, I don't know if he's doing things differently, but you know, everyone should applaud what they built there. And of course, Jay's the ringmaster of that, and how they develop their guys and how sound and fundamental. And you know, you got to beat them. They don't beat themselves. I do think there's a culture there that exists that would be at the very top of what our profession has. I'll say this too: our culture's right there too. Sometimes people, you know, when you look at our situation, you know, we had Josh, who was a one and done, and I guess Wiggs and Joe were one and dones. Were the last 3 we had, and that's going back to 2014. So we've had one since 2014. We've done it with older kids too. You know, we've done it with the Frank Masons and the Devontae Grahams and the Malik Newmans and Landon Lucases and certainly the Ochai Bajis, the Christian Browns, the David McCormacks. I mean, we've had very comparable success with older guys. But I will say this, they've got 2 championships in the last, 6 years or whatever it's been. So, and they knocked us out when we had a great team in the Elite Eight. And then of course, they beat us up pretty good in San Antonio in 18. So I do think it speaks volumes to how good their program is and how they do things. But I would like to hang our hat on comparable things, because one thing about it at Nova or Kansas, when kids wake up in the morning, they're thinking about ways to get better and how they can make this program better and how they can make this team better. I think that probably exists at both places.
Thanks,
So
Bill.
do you get the sense, Coach, that these guys are bringing extra energy or intensity to this run because of what happened in 20 with the sudden shutdown? Or is that a storyline that we're just making too much of?
I think you guys would probably come up with a storyline, regardless of how significant it is. But I don't know that you could look at 2020, we didn't play, and arguably we had as good a team as anybody. We probably would have been the number 1 overall, and in 21, we got knocked out and in the second round, and there's no excuses. We got beat handily, but we did have 2 starters have COVID. So I don't think that since 2018 have we competed in the tournament where there was a realistic chance for us to really do something. And so I do think the guys are jacked about it, but I'm not sure the motivation is from the past. I think the motivation's all in present tense.
Bill, this is Billy Witz with the New York Times. I wanted to ask you about just your first job at Kansas when, right after you graduated from college and at Oklahoma State. And how did you get that job? And just the experience that you had there in that 1 year, how much did that play a role in, I guess you coming back, I guess, what was it, almost, 17 years later to become the head coach, just in terms of relationships that you might have built, or just people's familiarity in Lawrence with you. And of course, having beaten them in the tournament, I'm sure, that helped too. But yeah, can you tell me about those things?
Well, I finished up at Oklahoma State, and one of my dear friends at Oklahoma State was R.C. Buford, and R.C. obviously very successful with the Spurs, and he came up here as a volunteer assistant when I was still playing at Oklahoma State. And so, back then, I've told the story 100 times. Back then, your own players can't work your own camps. You had to go to another school to work a camp. So Coach Brown would hire players from our league or wherever to come in and be counselors at the camp. And obviously Kansas has a big camp, and I did that. And while I was here, I hurt my knee playing with the guys, and the more Coach was around, the more I limped. And he after camp, I went up and thanked him for the opportunity to come work, and he said, "Bill, I'm sorry about your leg. If there's anything I can ever do, just ask." I said, "Well, there is one thing, Coach," and he said, "Name it." And he said, "You can." I said, "I want to be your graduate assistant next year." He said, "You're hired." So I went from a business major to knowing I was going to coach in college in a span of 30 seconds. And so all during my senior year, I knew I had a job at Kansas, and I didn't really tell anybody. So my family, but and I wrote him a letter about once a month to remind him he had hired me, and he never responded once. And I even came up here after I graduated. It took me a little extra time, summer school, but I came up here after I graduated and had never spoken to him. I just got in my car and drove up here, and "Hey, I'm here. What do you want me to do?" And "Yeah, just stay out of the way." So that was basically the job I had. I read USA Today and told him if anything was worth reading in it, and so I was more caught up on current events than I ever been in my life. But that was my gig, and I'm not exaggerating. I was in charge also on home games, making sure there was a lane at the bowling alley reserved So that way we could go bowl if he wanted to go bowl, just to kill time on home games. So I had a lot of responsibility that was very significant in our success. But I made a ton of friends here. And so and then also going back to Oklahoma State as an assistant, we're in the same league. So I see those friends every year. And so the relationships continued, and whether it be John Hadel or Joni Stevens or, Richard Consum, Doug Vance, whoever it be, they were all familiar with me. And so that probably played a role in me having an opportunity to come back here.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, there was a lot of discussion with Coach Wright this week about how much they jump, fake, no shot, but get defenders off their feet and, potentially get fouled, go to the free throw line. Do they do that, Villanova, more than most teams? How do you teach your guys, don't leave your feet, have sound defensive philosophy? What is it about the way their style is that leads to fouls?
It's really impressive how they do it, because they shoot 83% from the line. So I think that's an all-time NCAA potential record for a season. So big part of their offense is getting fouled. So and they shoot a ton of threes. Their number of threes may not look as significant as what it is based on the total number of shots, but I think, like Jesse, you probably know, 46% of their shots are threes, something like that, 45%. So that's a ridiculously high number. So what they're so good at is keeping everybody away from the middle, obviously because they can shoot, and then guys dribbling in there and being able to play off 2 feet. And they talk about that a lot. And in our league, Villanova would be the best in our league at not charging, where we're not near as good at that, obviously. So they do a great job of playing off 2 feet. And then, they're all good post players. They all have individual moves. They all have something and a counter they can go to. And what makes it difficult, Dave, I think, is you have guys playing post defense that aren't used to playing post defense. And then, you have guys that, think that they can block a shot, and really we'd be better off if they just stay on the floor. And even Miami, Miami lifted us numerous times the first half. And until we kind of got a rhythm defensively, that was probably their best offense too, was lifted. So it does take a disciplined player to stay down. So and we'll spend, we didn't practice yesterday, but we'll spend the rest of this week, attempting to be sound and doing that.
Hey, Bill.
Ken Davis.
Hey, Bill. David McCormack, obviously the big second half against Miami, and then he also had the big Big 12 championship performance. How has he kind of matured over his 4 years here that's allowed him to kind of step up in those big roles? And then does he take you to another level when he's playing at a higher level?
I think that I thought going into the season, David McCormack would be the key player for us. And now I think it's obviously David and Remy, because when they play at a high level, then it totally changes our team probably as much as anybody else, because our other performers have been pretty consistent. But David's the one guy that and I've said this all along, he's the one guy that can come away with 15 and 10 and not have to be his best. Because he has a natural knack for getting the ball in the basket when he catches it in tight. So, we need David to play well. There's no question about that. I think David and Mitch combined have been a terrific 5-man force, over the course of the last month or whatnot. But he's matured. He's developed. I wish his health allowed him to play probably more free and more healthy for an entire season. But I do think he's feeling as well as he has all year long, and we certainly need him to be big on Saturday.
Thank you.
Hey, Dave. Hey, Bill, this is Dave with the AP. Going back to the experience thing that you were talking about earlier, I think your top 8 guys combined have played 965 college basketball games, which is, I don't know if it's a record, but it's got to be close. Are you able to do different things when you're coaching a team that has that much collective experience?
I'd say in most cases you would, but not in all cases, because you know, Remy, even though he's played a ton of games, he's played what, 25 here? And even though Jalen Coleman's played 200 games in his career, whatever it is, you know, he's played 30, 38 here. So I don't think we're as, I think sometimes the experience is overrated if it's not your own experiences. I think that's happened a lot in the portal. I think people think that just because you get a grad transfer or senior, that automatically adds experience and things like that into your program, but it takes a significant amount of time to get everybody on the same page and have them understand and buy into everything you're doing. So I do think we're experienced. I think Villanova's obviously very experienced. Miami is very experienced, but I would rather have experience and not have it, but talent plus experience is what wins.
Anything else from the Zoom?
Bill, it's Ken Davis.
Again,
Bill, Ken Davis, just kind of following up on that comment about David and Mitch combining at the 5 spot. They both played pretty efficiently against Miami, but they both played just about 17 minutes. Do you still have concerns with their health and how many minutes they can go, or is it just working that way?
No, I have no concerns right now. I have no concerns. I thought against Miami, even though I thought David keyed us getting off to a great start the second half, but when we went to the bench, which we normally do in rotation, I actually thought our team was actually better when Mitch was in the game, but it didn't have as much to do with Mitch as it had just with the flow of the game. So that was the one thing. And I kept telling Dave on the bench to stay loose, and we kept going. So I didn't want to put him back in after he wasn't loose. So that's all there was to that.
Could you tell us what you've been doing since you got back and this week's schedule going to New Orleans and all that?
Well, we got back at 10:15 or whatever it was Sunday night, and so there's a little gathering here in Allen that was fantastic. Guys all enjoyed it, and then I hate to admit this, but yesterday was a slow day. Yesterday was it wasn't an off day by any stretch, but yesterday was a logistics day. Whether it be tickets, whether it be hotels, whether it be outlining media things like that. It was a logistics day, and that was actually the focus with some tape, but not like today. Yeah, so I wanted to get everything done yesterday so I could focus in on scouting and Villanova starting today.
Will the guys be able to explore New Orleans?
Explore New Orleans. I don't think there's going to be much exploration taking place, but we'll go to we're going tomorrow. So, and I think everybody else is as well. But we'll go to a nice dinner as a team and let them do some things. But if there is a walk through Bourbon Street, it'll be in the early hours, and certainly with the curfew right after it.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys.